Hello and welcome to the Global News Podcast from the BBC. I'm Celia Hatton, and today I'm joined by our UK political correspondent, Rob Watson, on a very consequential day in British politics. The UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer has just announced his resignation. Rob, great to have you with us. Big day. The UK is about to have its seventh Prime Minister in 10 years. Can you talk us through it?
Goodness, well, we've had so many big days in British politics, and we'd have another one, and it's both dramatic and unsurprising. I mean, dramatic because, yes, it is the sixth Prime Minister to be claimed by events in Britain, and it was after Sir Keir Starmer had won such an enormous majority just 2 years ago, and it's all gone horribly wrong. But unsurprising in the sense that given how many other prime ministers have gone by the wayside this last decade, and given how incredibly unpopular Keir Starmer had become, I mean, it's not really in that sense surprising that he'd lost the support of his governing Labour Party. But again, you know, if you step back from it, Celia, it just is head scratching. I mean, I don't think anyone would have believed if you'd said 20, 30, 40 years ago there'd be a decade where Britain would have 7 prime ministers.
Rob, you mentioned that Keir Starmer is pretty unpopular. Earlier today, we spoke to some voters in the city of York. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
I mean, he's not been that popular of a Prime Minister, has he? I mean, I feel like he's not done a terrible job, but he's just not popular, and it's very hard in the sort of type of politics we have now to be a Prime Minister that just does okay without, making it. You kind of have to do grand things, don't you, these days in politics? It's not about, doing an all right job, it's about making a mark.
I'm not sure this was a great news for me, in my opinion, because I don't think it will solve the problem. I think the problem is deeper than that, and I'm a bit worried that populists are pushing forward their agenda. I think it's the same. I'm French, and it's the same situation in France.
Well, it's overdue, in my opinion. Well overdue. He's been a failure for some time.
So, Rob, we've just heard those people, ending with that last gentleman. Why was Keir Starmer so deeply unpopular?
It's a great question, and it's certainly not in doubt that he was. I mean, there seems to be a visceral dislike for the Prime Minister among the voters. I mean, the polling evidence and focus groups suggests it's because, fairly or unfairly, Celia, they saw him as variously inauthentic, a sort of typical politician, indecisive, kind of cold, bureaucratic, a bit out of touch with the way this country felt to live in, and for some people that the sort of personification of the woke bureaucracy as they would see it. So, absolutely extraordinarily unpopular.
So the Prime Minister's position was already under threat, and now his main rival, Andy Burnham, has a seat in Parliament. Tell us why that matters and how things might change moving forward.
Well, the reason it matters is that the rules of the governing Labour Party is that you can't challenge for the leadership, you can't become Prime Minister unless you're an MP, and Andy Burnham is now an MP. So that was the vital step for him to challenge Keir Starmer. And of course, it's the reason why Keir Starmer has had to step aside, because essentially within the governing Labour Party, the mood, the tide has turned against him towards Andy Burnham, and there's a very, very simple reason for that, Celia, and that is that Labour MPs felt when they looked at the standing of Mr. Starmer in the country and of their party in the country, they were facing an existential threat. So there's a sort of, you could almost describe it as a level of panic amongst MPs, Labour MPs worried about losing their job. Andy Burnham has just won a special election, or by-election as we call them, in the north of England, where he defeated one of the parties that frightens Labour most, the populists of Reform and Nigel Farage, who've done well in appealing to the sort of white working classes who used to vote Labour.
I mean, it all seems a bit crazy, doesn't it, Rob? Andy Burnham is now serving as the mayor of the northern city of Manchester, but he could leapfrog to become Prime Minister. Why do so many people see so much potential in Andy Burnham?
His attraction to Labour politicians and the people who like him, the voters of Greater Manchester, is that he's quite clearly more relatable, more more friendly, if you like, than Keir Starmer. He comes over as being much more likable. He comes over as being more normal. He likes sort of football. He likes trendy clothing for a middle-aged guy. He loves music. So they think that if nothing else, that even if their policies don't change particularly radically, at least there'll be someone as Prime Minister who can communicate, who'd be a much better messenger than Keir Starmer. Now, of course, whether that would be enough without other policies is, I guess, the absolute key question in British politics now.
Okay, so you've mentioned policy, Rob. Just quickly, domestically, what would Andy Burnham do differently? Because voters just had an election not too long ago to put Keir Starmer in place to do certain things.
Yeah, and the short answer is we just don't know, Celia, right? I mean, in some ways, the two men seem very similar in terms of ideology and policy. They're both centre-left politicians. You would recognise that all over Europe. They both believe that the priority should be on increasing the living standards of ordinary people. They both believe, as centre-left politicians, that the state is a force for good. But here's the thing. You then say, well, OK, what might Andy Burnham do differently? And those more on the left of the Labour Party would love to see more public spending, more taxes on the rich. And the problem here is that economists would tell you that Britain already is up to its eyes in debt, that it already has historically and relatively speaking high levels of public spending and taxation on businesses, on the rich. So there's a danger, of course, and if you're from the left of the Labour Party, that you're going to end up being very disappointed that Mr. Burnham will be boxed in just like Keir Starmer was, and in fact, just like prime ministers and presidents are all over the world, by the kind of financial constraints they find themselves in.
Rob, just to focus on the big picture a bit, I mean, Britain keeps changing leaders. So far, no one's been able to stick in place for very long over the past 10 years. Why is Britain so difficult to govern?
Well, the polling evidence and focus groups and just going out there and talking to people suggest there are three really big drivers. And those drivers are, number one, stagnating living standards. And that actually goes back beyond this 10 years and 6 prime ministers. It goes back to the financial crash of 2008. And that makes people's lives miserable. And it makes them unhappy and angry. The second thing, which is sort of connected, is a sense that nothing works properly in Britain, Celia. The public services don't work thanks to underinvestment. And then the third, massive issue is a concern over immigration and social cohesion. And all the evidence suggests that is what is driving voter anger, and anger which in turn is driving enormous political volatility in this country and the threat to the two main parties that have governed Britain for the last 100 years, the Conservatives before, and now Labour. And it is, of course, why if people are sort of stepping back from it all, will say, you know what, maybe, Britain's political crisis is not just about the person who's in Downing Street, given that we've gone through 6 of them. Maybe it's these bigger issues.
It's interesting, Rob. I mean, listening to you talk